I'm not sure about that.
No, she's doing the thing. Hang on. Forget the reception on these, John. We don't really need them.
I can't hear you. Should I be here?
You should hear the air signal.
Wait, he's not plugged in. Oh, yes, he is. You hear the air signal? You hear anything?
No, I got static.
Yeah, it's a little staticky.
Oh, there we go. Whoop.
What is it? Oh, it's a bad.
There we go. I got it.
bad
All right, it's
splitter.
nice. It's fine. That's
I'm
fine.
not hearing the tape input here. So
Is it playing?
But we got to talk for a
I
while
got it.
first.
would you go get me some? Yeah. Oh, here, I got it. Damn. Whoa.
Now, if you guys want to hear
Okay, I
what's
got
Gary,
going
you
on
gonna-
out there, you
I
just
got
turn
it.
on an FM radio
That's good.
somewhere.
Is that still good?
You know, there's an.
Sounds pretty good.
You can check it out.
Then you might make
Okay, good.
Okay, we're ready to go here. I think we're in transmit.
Yeah, we're in transfer.
And what does our signal look like?
On over there? Oh.
Do you want Kay over here co-hosting? Oh, can I?
She wants to come over in a while. Hang on.
Okay, I just.
Well, why? Is Bill going to stay around?
No, it's either Jackie or I could. Yeah, I don't know.
Negative.
Yeah, Kay might be good to have
5,
because
50.
she's a jazz series person, too.
Yeah, I think.
Why don't you walk us through this part, though, just to make sure it's
Well,
going
maybe,
okay.
would you be game to run the board for?
Yeah, you want me to go get her and send her
Okay.
over?
We'll probably need another microphone. Need another microphone, and yeah, come get her after that.
I'm just gonna shake your hand and congratulate.
Yeah, we'll need a microphone for congratulatory messages. Anyway, wait, stay around. We'll put you on the air to congratulate
We'll
John.
need another
Oh, you
mic
got
with a
to.
boom
Yeah,
stand
come on.
on that end.
Just for a minute.
Can I say boot cutting national day?
All right, tell you what.
Hey, we might want to put that top down so we don't.
Just be a minute.
Flip
Just
the-
say hello, you know?
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
No,
It'll be
I'm
totally
with
back-
you.
welcome to-
the back
I'll put it on
plastic.
right after.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
will it make noise when I
I'm on the
bring it
commission.
down?
Cool. Surprise me.
If we leave it up, we
My
can
Okay.
My
What?
name's Kevin.
if we leave it up, we
Melody.
can change records fast.
Well, can we do CDs? CDs are a lot faster.
Oh, what the hell? Either one.
Well, leave it on. That's like an 18-minute cut or something.
Yeah, well, we were just going to go through the library. I was
Well,
going to
here,
have you
here, I'll-
explicate a little bit. And then if people had favorite cuts,
we'll go right
you should
away.
grab
I'll just-
that box
let
from
me go
Tatlow
turn
and
it
play a
down.
little of that Charlie Parker.
Jackie's.
No, there's plenty here.
Talk about them? No.
There's plenty here.
All right. Soon. Hang on. She just. Hold on 1 second.
Was it pretty cool at the journal?
What's it?
Was it pretty cool at the journalism?
Yeah, it worked out great.
Good. Good.
Other than the fact that I got a terrible cold, but.
Hello.
What are we listening to here, Kev?
I don't know what she's got on there. It's something
See
jazzy.
if I'm overdriving over here.
It's not that record.
Okay. Good.
Are you hearing?
Yeah. Sitars. Tony Scott? No. Too rocky. Not sure.
What's his name's Hearts of Space. My
Bring a mic stand with you. Bring a mic stand.
Yeah. That sounds vague. Okay.
Yeah. Don't ask me.
Did you go to any of the jazz series shows this year? I didn't. I'll say
No,
that right
and
up
I
front.
haven't this year, but I have.
Oh, you're both banned.
But we both have an appreciation. You
Yes.
probably for the business side, and me for the aesthetic side.
Okay.
I don't know.
What's going on?
Oh,
Ready to go?
well, Jackie's just replaced Kay.
Hello?
And, we've got a signal there.
That's too far open, right?
This is perfect. What we have here.
Show me what you think.
So they can bring us in
Does that feel
anytime,
like
right?
Okay, cool. I felt like this probably isn't the
Just tell them
best
to pull the trigger on that, Jeff.
You know about the swinging saxophonist, right, Kevin?
I was telling her, we got to save this stuff for the air, man. It's all gold.
I'm just priming you, babe.
I was gonna say, I played saxophone in high school, so I do have an aesthetic appreciation for all of this too. I'm not at the level of you guys.
Yeah, sure.
Let's do
Maybe
it.
you
Come
wanna
on.
like run one of the videos, and then out of
Oh, it does? You're overmodulating. You're getting the feed sounded really terrible, she said. She said the feed that she's getting sounds awful.
How's that possible? Okay.
since we don't have like a title.
Yeah. Should I just
Offices at 21 North 10th Street or visit wealwaysswing.org. Hi, I'm Josh Chittum, Assistant Director at the We Always Swing Jazz Series. Stop by our office at 20 North 10th Street next door to Katz Community Media Center and visit our 7,000 title library. It features CDs, LPs, and books. Everything from Sarah Vaughan Freeman, from Sonny Rollins to Sun Ra. The library is totally free and open to the public. You can come in Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And if you see a title that you bring home with you, ask about our membership program.
With a collection exceeding 7,000 CDs, LPs, and books, the We Always Swing Jazz Series has a sizable lending library to offer the community. From jazz's beginnings right up to today's newest modern sounds, the library is constantly growing. Whatever style you prefer, whatever mood you're in, selections can be found in the Jazz Series lending library. Best of all, coming in to listen is free, but if you find a title that you like to borrow, simply become a Jazz Series member. The Jazz Series starting at $25 per year and public memberships as inexpensive as just $50 a year. Entry-level members can check out up to 2 CDs per week. Listen in your car, at home, at work, or grab a cup of coffee and enjoy the music at the Jazz Series. To find out how you can become a lending library member, just stop by the We Series.
It's Metheny. This is one of Pat Metheny's goofy CDs. Isn't this Pat Metheny? Yeah. No, it's Static. What are we doing?
Jackie.
Does that say Dexter Gordon on it?
Hello?
Yeah, Dexter Gordon,
One flight up? Modal? Yeah, okay.
Hello. Hello.
Hi, my name is John Pozis, and I serve as Executive and Artistic Director of the We Always Swing Jazz Series. These days, we're very excited about what's going on with the Jazz Series. When we conceived of the Jazz Series nearly 20 years ago, we had no idea it would flourish to the extent it has. We had no idea that it would turn out to be one of the more respected all-jazz community-based programs of its kind in the United States, and one of but a handful of like-minded projects in the entire country located in a market the size of Columbia and its surrounding area. From the outset, our goal with the Jazz Series was to create, establish, and find a permanent place within the Central Missouri cultural landscape that had staying power. How fitting is that? Just like jazz itself, that the Jazz Series has become a gift of sorts to the entire Central Missouri community. When we started the Jazz Series in 1995, we did so with concise and straightforward mission statement: to present, promote, preserve, and celebrate the great American art known as jazz. Our intent was to accomplish this through a series of concerts featuring the world's finest musicians and augmenting those performances with related educational activities. Further, as jazz itself continues to unfold on an ongoing basis, we wanted the We Always Swing Jazz Series to showcase and emphasize the present-day forms and expressions of the genre. However, we also understand that jazz has an incredibly rich history, one now more than a century old. As such, while we've kept one eye on the present and the future, we have also acknowledged the great musicians who arrived on the scene decades ago. Today, 2 decades after the Jazz Series started, and some 200 concerts and an equal number of ancillary events later, our mission statement continues to serve as the Jazz Series principal guidepost. What's changed, and happily so, is as Columbia and the surrounding area have grown, so has the number of people who live here that have learned how to enjoy and appreciate jazz. We're particularly pleased that this is especially true of the number of children who, thanks to the Jazz Series, have seen and heard samplings of the grand treasure known as jazz. Children, like my own daughters, who attended our kids' concerts as elementary school graders, are now in their mid-20s. They have heard jazz essentially their entire lives. What could be better? Each Jazz Series season arrives with renewed energy, anticipation, and excitement. However, as we ready for the 20th anniversary season, we do so with an eye toward our now measurable history and past. The 2014-2015 season schedule, which will be announced soon, will remind us of who we are, where we started from, and how far we've come. We believe people will be excited about the artists who appear in the coming months. We certainly hope so. Each and every ensemble will serve as a reminder of just how substantive the Jazz Series has been. The season, through concerts, educational activities, and special celebratory events, will again reflect our mission. The artists and the groups that perform in season number 20 will vary in size, sound, stylings, instrumentation, age, and gender. The composite sketch of the 2015 season will offer, as each season has throughout the Jazz Series history, a snapshot of what is jazz today, or perhaps it's better said, this is what jazz is today. The season is dedicated to the Jazz Series itself. As such, we have extended invitations to performers and groups who have graced the Jazz Series stages previously. Similarly, we will also celebrate those musicians who have participated previously but sadly are no longer with us. The Jazz Series Clubhouse, our home at 21 North 10th Street in downtown Columbia in the district and next door to Cat TV since 2012, is continually filled with joyous sounds on a daily basis. We want to invite everyone to stop in, say hello, listen to some jazz, and soak in the sounds of this great body of music. Thank you.
This is a song that I wrote for my mother. Actually, one time I was living in New Orleans, and she was living in St. Louis, and I wanted to give her a gift, but I didn't have any money to send it to her FedEx. And as a son does, I thought about it like the day before her birthday. So I was like, oh, she plays piano, so I wrote her the sheet music for this song. This is called Mom's Song.
Hi,
that was a standard entitled "I Didn't Know What Time It Was." I have this DVD of Art Blakey, and they're playing all these shuffles like that. And I was like, man, we got to do something like that. So that was impromptu. I hope you enjoyed that.
Hi, I'm Josh Chittum, Assistant Director of the We Always Swing Jazz Series. The Jazz Series has been offering educational activities since 1996. Those activities include Jazz in the Schools, in which we work with Columbia Public Schools and their partners in education to bring talented MU Jazz Study students into elementary and middle schools to show them exactly what live jazz is. This is great because jazz is meant to be experienced live, and that way the students can see exactly how fun and wonderful America's gift to the world is. In addition, it's a benefit for the MU Jazz Study students because it allows them an opportunity to get some of their first paying gigs out in the real world. We also offer our annual children's concert, in which we have a professional jazz band play at Hickman High School, and we bus in students from all over the district to enjoy the sounds of jazz. This year, we saw over 1,500 students enjoy the sounds of the Collegiate Shag Brass Band over 2 days. We also enjoy hosting community forums that are free and open to the public. These forums range on topics such as jazz drumming and the influence of Thelonious Monk on modern music. The panels are hosted by academic experts such as Gerald Early and Robin D.G. Kelly, as well as master musicians like Arturo Farrell and Matt Wilson. The Jazz Series also enjoys a great working relationship with the University of Missouri Jazz Studies Department. One of the most exciting aspects of this partnership is bringing in our artist in residence, in which we'll bring in a professional jazz musician to work with the MU Jazz Band for a few days, helping the students progress on their skills not only as a player, but as a possible professional career. All of this culminates in a concert in which the MU Jazz Studies students will get to share the stage with some of today's jazz greats. Those have included Randy Brecker, Russell Malone, Joe Locke, and Jeffrey Kieser.
very much. That was a song written by Cole Porter entitled Just One of Those Things.
Hi, I'm Josh Chittum, Assistant Director of the We Always Swing Jazz Series. As a nonprofit organization, the Jazz Series relies heavily on volunteers to fill staffing gaps. These tasks include helping around the office, hanging up posters downtown, event staff, and even driving players to and from the airport. Volunteering is a great way to help out the Jazz Series and become involved in our mission. Also, if you're a student, ask about internship opportunities. We have internships in graphic design, photography, business, marketing. So yeah, it's a great way to get involved in the Jazz Series and earn credit.
fuzziness. Does it sound okay? Yeah. We're kind of a library. This is a library CD collection. John, you've collected. You mentioned you've written about music for, 30 years or so. So you get sent, back in the day, you used to get sent a lot of music, I'm sure. And you've hung on to it like everyone. But you found a way to actually make use of it instead of just pissing off whoever you're living with how many discs you have and how they don't care about them.
Right.
So
well,
that is
actually, Josh, the assistant director, came up with the idea of creating a lending library. The idea is to give people an opportunity to check out a lot of the artists that we bring in or have brought in, and then also just people who are curious about the library itself and what we have here and the potential. So we're real excited about it. There's a lot of things going on with it. We have made an arrangement with MU's Master of Library Science program, and the ultimate goal right now. This is just alphabetized by artist / group, but in probably the next 12 to 18 months, it will be all cross catalog by artists, and every artist on every jazz record, because as you know, Kevin, a lot of people play with a lot of other people. Mm-hmm. So if you want to come in and say, I want to find out every CD in the library that Bud Powell plays on, you don't just go to Bud Powell, but you find all the recordings, or Monk, or anybody, or Miles, or
if somebody comes in and says, I want Bobby Watson and James Williams.
Yeah, right,
boom,
exactly. So it'll
be
by artists. It'll be obviously by title. Obviously, it'll be by composition. It'll be by publishing company. It'll be by label. It'll be
just like the All Music side.
Exactly. And
that's nice.
So we have a nominal annual fee. You can come in. We will set it up where we have a listening station, probably pretty close to where we're sitting right now.
Yeah. In fact, we're going to be here playing stuff off of the listening station.
Yeah. So you can listen to it, but if you become a member of the Jazz Series, which is we think a pretty nominal and fair price, then you can check out CDs. Sure. So it's meant to be a living, breathing
Spotify.
Yeah. And we've already, people have called up and said, I'd like to donate my CDs.
There you go.
So but we don't want to turn into a 50,000 volume library.
But it is nice to to have something besides ticket. People have an interest in jazz, and I was just saying this to one of the people when I first came in, is that nobody at work really, if they like the level of jazz that you're going to see at the Jazz Series, there's not a lot of people at work that you're going to be able to share your passion about music with, or even at home sometimes. You know. In fact, a little resentment can build up at home because so much time and attention is paid to the music. And this might be a good time to bring in our board member who's nodding in agreement.
That's right. A very long-standing and generous and hard-working board member, Bill Parks.
Joins us in the library, the Jazz Series library.
How are you doing, Kevin? Hey,
good,
John.
good to see you. I actually have not seen you in a while. You came in with bearing gifts too. I noticed. That was a fish-shaped dish, wasn't it?
It was. I think it was just a long oval. Actually.
Oval. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
nice.
It was the generous contribution from Mike Odette at Sycamore.
Who, speaking of people who work in a job and are excellent at what they do, and has unbelievable taste in jazz. The only reason I know about Mike's taste in jazz really is because I worked in a record store. I slung records, and so not being that passionate about it myself, I didn't know. But here Mike has that. I'm not saying he has to hide that light under a bushel. You hear the music in his place, but I mean, he's a good example of what I'm talking about there. Now, and you do something besides listen to jazz. I know that. You're an ER doc, right?
Bill's a music hound. He's a very eclectic taste.
That's right.
There's not too many genres I'm not interested in, but jazz is my favorite, no question about that.
Going back how far?
Well, sometime in
college. Was it your first love?
Like I guess a lot of people, even of a generation before.
Let's bring up that. Bill's picked out something, a piece of vinyl from the library. It's the Oscar Peterson collection, and we'll put that on. Just a little light in the background, can we?
Yeah.
Because I want to hear about Bill's introduction to jazz and how he's Oh, I like
Well,
it. It's all right.
Yeah. Well, I think
Well, that's a little.
in college, my freshman year, in the dorm, in one of these large dorms at the University of Michigan, there was a library and some records, and I came across Dave Brubeck, of all people, in college setting.
Yeah, right.
And that was somewhat the start of it. But what really kindled interest was listening to KOPN and jazz and baseball.
Oh,
And
yeah.
This man right here,
This is a good time to talk about this, John. We wanted to get to this.
John Poses,
Right.
played this marvelous jazz. And my wife and I just, fell in love with it.
Not to mention the relationship he had with, was it Jack Buck? That you and he, no, it was the one after him.
Bob.
Who was name
there
the
were
announcers
several.
that you've had relationships with
announcers.
in the St. Louis baseball world?
Well,
Famous-
not really. I
it
mean,
was a famous idea of who did that.
oh, we did when I was covering Major League Ball for magazines. I would get them to do station IDs
It was
for.
a famous one we used to do over.
Well,
and over.
we
So
did
you'd give 1,
Nolan,
2,
Nolan
3, 4.
Ryan did one, and Tom Seaver did one, and some of the Cardinals did them. I can't remember.
Oh, I remember distinctly one of the
Anyway.
announcers though. Give me because he was doing the pro thing. It says, "Give me 1, 2, 3, 4,
Right, right.
then 2, 1." Yeah,
Right,
boom,
right.
Jack.
Um,
So, and there is a relationship between jazz and baseball that John has kind of pointed out. It's about improvisation. It's classically American.
Yeah, I mean, it's at this stage the way the whole sporting world has gone. I mean, baseball's still the national pastime, but of course, this country has gone football crazy. I kind of joke that ESPN should change their call letters to ESPN FL because all they do is cover football.
Mm-hmm.
So, but by and large, there's a certain empathy between the two national pastimes, as I like to refer to them, which was the genesis for our swinging saxophonist and our logo for the Jazz Series.
John Poses is my guest. We're at the Jazz Series headquarters on North 10th Street celebrating, we're winding up the celebration of Jazz Month, Jazz Appreciation Month. It is International Jazz Day, and we are waiting for the awards people to bring the Jazz Hero Award for John Hero. Bill.
The Jazz Hero
waiting
Award.
for that.
Now back to Bill, though. I wanted to just, John had the We Always Swing, the Jazz and Baseball show was, I guess, in the 80s then, right? Is that when you were talking about
Yeah,
it?
I was at KOPN from 78 or 9 till about 87.
Yeah.
Right.
And
So you're listening on the radio.
Yeah, changing
and
diapers and such as
raising the
that.
family,
Yeah,
etc. Right.
Yeah.
And so you're at this time, you're really isolated. If you've got the family, you're not going to the clubs. I imagine if you're changing diapers and stuff like that.
Well,
so
no, it was the great music of my life. As other, I have to plug KOPN as other KOPN programming was also.
yeah, I think
but,
we all got a story like that. I've got a Fred Television story, like a monkey show that
Yeah.
he did that really kind of came at a weird
But then
time.
John started producing some shows. What was the first year you produced a show?
I think really Murray's opened in July of 85, and I was doing a story on James Williams, the aforementioned James Williams.
The late James Williams.
For Downbeat magazine, and those guys asked me if any of the artists I was writing about if they would play Murray's, and James was the first person to play Murray's. He played I could be off here a little bit, but basically September, October of 1985.
Mm-hmm.
The first big show I did was Stefan Grappelli at Jesse
Wow.
in May of '86, and then we did a couple of other major shows at Jesse, where I partnered with the School of Music and University Concert Series and Murray's and the Blue Note, and we kind of all went in there, but the idea was mostly to do live jazz every Saturday at Murray's when they first started out, before they got so busy and so slammed. And that's actually the impetus for starting the Jazz Series, because it got to the point where Murray's was so crowded as a restaurant, or it's not crowded, but so popular as a restaurant, and we would be doing shows. It wasn't really a formula. It was an approximate. It was all Saturday nights, and it was an approximate thing of doing a couple of local players around Columbia, a regional act, and about once a month a national act. And what happened was the national acts, I ended up representing them and booking tours, because obviously Murray's, back then it was only 100 seats. Now it's 125.
So you book a couple shows around it.
Right.
touch of
Now,
people.
here's the great part. Back then, of course, we don't have cell phones. You know, we don't have the internet. We don't have anything. So how do you find out where to book a band if you don't know where the jazz clubs are, which basically I didn't. So I ended up calling all the public radio stations, like an A to Z. I called about 200 public radio stations and talked to the music directors and many of the stations, believe it or not, had a jazz director back then.
Wow.
And I said, is there any venue in your town that books national acts where people come in and actually pay attention to the artists? Not that hanging out and having music in the background, there's nothing wrong with that, but you're not going to bring so-and-so out and just have people. You might as well, that's a waste of a resource. Anyway, and that's how I put the tours together.
Yeah, that the fact that the music has to be central. A couple of things. The way you described that, you started reaching out to the Blue Note, to the University Music School, all that. In a way, Jerome Wheeler, at Mo Riv CC, when I asked him about Heaven's Bright Babies and some of the eclectic projects he put together, he goes, Columbia was such an isolated market then that you'd have to include the Tai Chi people and any kind of artistic type that wanted to be included. They would bring their crowd too, and so
Right.
in order to make a crowd, you're doing this on an institutional level. Which really, and plus you're making a list of all the clubs.
Does that mean I'm institutionalized?
No, that means that outreach is at the very core,
Right.
pretty much of the series. You've since
Well-
got into education, and also the travel day thing, which Columbia has always, since the big band era,
Yeah.
we've been a travel days town.
Right.
And this continues the tradition in the best possible way.
Right.
you
And
know?
the interesting thing was because jazz is basically a pretty, especially when you get to the upper echelon, a cottage industry. There's only so many players that can execute their instrument at the highest level, which is what we try to do. So, and somebody like James Williams, who was at, and a number of players, at the core, at the center, the epicenter really of the modern jazz world in New York City. And if you had somebody who, God bless him, who was as social as James Williams, he'd be holding court and he'd be saying, oh yeah, I played this place in Columbia, Missouri. And next thing I knew, my phone's like ringing off the hook. And the people who are calling, me are like the greatest musicians. My heroes are all, hi, is John Postis there? James Williams told me that you book tours. And it was like, whoa. It was like, whoa.
So that's 85 to 87. You're booking.
No, that's 85 to 85, 86 to 95.
No, that you're just booking one-offs and this and that. And putting
No,
it together.
I'm doing tours.
Tours. Okay.
Tours.
But I mean, when did it turn into the jazz series?
Well, what happened was, everything about this is organic. So what happened was in fall of 94, Murray's was getting really popular and really busy. They had been open almost 10 years themselves. And as you know, the town was expanding in that direction southward. So what happened was we had built up a mailing list, a core list of people. And back then, when you're talking about, I'm going to look at some of the old posters. You will remember this. Everybody here will remember this, where you cut out a line and you did a little cut and paste,
Right.
and the posters came out and they had lines everywhere, from the Scotch tape and stuff. But anyway, and whiteout, pounds of whiteout. And anyway, so what happened was we had built up a mailing list, strictly snail mail. We're still before email, really, and we had about 100 to 150, maybe 200. Jazz enthusiasts, and we were doing it on Saturday nights, prime night for restaurants. And so we had these loyal people would come to Murray's at about 7 o'clock to get a table. And the music wouldn't start. The latest, we kept moving the music later and later and later, which is the antithesis of what's going on now. But we started, I think the latest we started jazz on Saturday night was, the first set was at 10 o'clock, if you can imagine that.
And
Anyway.
if you've been to Murray's at 10 o'clock, it was the same way then. It was
Yeah,
just
but
the same
but to do music from 10 to 11:15 and then 11:30 to 1.
I remember it.
I mean,
Yeah.
two sets.
I was actually almost thrown out, Bill, because I came in on a night when I didn't know the band was playing. We were with Foley and all that, and we were making so much noise that
Right.
they shushed us.
Right. So that
kind of thing really.
So what? There were two things
Needed to be
working.
fixed, yeah.
There were people who were just coming to eat at Murray's. They weren't necessarily jazz fans.
Right.
Okay, and they were being
Although
asked.
they hear a little good jazz while they're there. Yeah.
And they were asked to pay a cover as we built up the cover. And then you had the other problem where people sat and didn't move for 3.5, 4 hours on a Saturday night because they were waiting for the music to start and they wanted good seats. So Murray's, the waitresses, the wait staff was not happy because there's no turnover on the table. And Gary and Billy are trying to run a restaurant. So we had a big powwow, and in October of '94, the last show of that era.
Folks, thanks for stopping by. We should get some of these people to.
Yeah, the last show was David Murray Quartet with John Hicks.
That was the night I met Murray. Yeah.
Okay, so anyway,
Finally.
that was October of '94, and then I was going to leave Columbia because it didn't make sense. It was not good for Murray's. It was not good for what I was doing. I had done a lot of touring. I could do it from New York. But then I came up with this idea. Maybe we should have a subscription series.
Yeah.
And so I took a whole year to figuring academic cycle of Columbia.
Right.
So this was October '94. The first concert that's officially a jazz series concert is Slide Hampton and the Jazz Masters at Jesse Hall in a tribute to Charlie Parker on his 75th birthday, or what would have been. And Slide Hampton, one of the great arrangers, had a fabulous band, 13-piece band and we called it Big Band Bird. And Danilo Perez was in it, and David Sanchez, and all these wonderful players who are now, of course, 20
very well known.
20
and
years
graduated
later
into another echelon.
Yeah,
because
so-
people like John Hicks are no longer with us.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's how the jazz series started.
1995 to
Fall of 95.
2015. We're heading into 20 years. People just streaming in and out of Jazz Series headquarters here. And John, what I'd like you to do, I talked to Bill a little bit. Why don't you go back in the back and scare up another guest? Send them
Sure.
up to the microphone here. I want to hear what they have to say about
Okay,
the Jazz
that-
Series.
all right.
We're live from the Jazz Series headquarters here at 20. Is it 20?
21.
21 North 10th Street. Bill Parks alongside. So we're in college. I'm interested in this. Is it the dorm room you're listening to jazz? Is it, you guys have the
Right.
albums out, right?
Yeah, there's a library. Yeah, I
Yeah.
started dabbling into jazz.
So you've got the sound system that's souped up, maybe? No? The old Lafayette?
No, that box where the turntables folds down from the box, and then there's detachable
Okay, yeah, you had that.
speakers. The state of the art for college dorm room.
roommates
in
into it?
1968. This is
Yeah.
68. So, yeah, the roommate was reasonably into it.
Yeah?
Yes, but we also mixed up, with
Yeah, no.
Iron Butterfly and everything else.
It's kind of funny back then, you look at the concert series for, say, the university or something, and it'll mix things like, Big Walter and then straight up jazz people like Sun Ra, and it was an eclectic time, music-wise. Now it seems to sort it out into specialties more.
Well, certainly, still a lot of variety.
Ron Newman joins us too, steady patron of the Jazz Series from over the years. Now, I wanted to get to, we were talking about jazz, Ron, and, just how you get into it. Bill's been a fan for a long time. You yourself has attended the concert since the inception. What age were you when you came to jazz? Let's put it that way.
I think, I listened to KOPN early in the morning. John had a show where he read from the newspaper, and and it
Same
was
show.
like in the I don't know, it's like Europa Cafe era, so it was in the late 70s, early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just became enthralled because it was so unusual. And so I was on a flight to New York City, I think, at the time, and I saw his name as on a piece about the St. Louis Cardinals. And I got really intrigued, and I said, okay, well, I'm listening to this guy in the morning in Columbia, Missouri, on KOPN, and I've never met him. I love jazz, and so I got to meet him. So one afternoon, I was walking into the Europa Cafe for a little lunch with some friends, and somebody says, hey, Poses, like, see you later, and I just introduced myself. I said, John, hi. It's like, it's Ron. I'm Ron Newman, and I really like your show. And then from then on, things just kind of evolved.
It's a trust in the brand. Bill, how did you come to? You said you were listening to John, changing diapers and stuff like that. Was it that way with you too, or you kind of, you finally ran into him at one point and said, I listened to or did you seek him out?
Well,
He sought you out for the board, probably.
Well, it was some of that. I I was happy to get involved, and it was just one of those great moments and great traditions in Columbia, this small little college town in the middle of nowhere, where you get world class.
Isn't that the best part of it?
Performance.
It's like secret.
I mean, there are so many different art endeavors in the city, but one of them that I like of many others is the jazz. And John was bringing. He started the series. I saw several shows before that, but once the series was started and it was a nonprofit and community based, I became involved and have been on the board.
More
most of
organic,
Yeah.
That it really was an organic process. Now I noticed we were looking around the jazz library here. We can play. They have all different formats. I asked you to pick out some vinyl, and you picked out Oscar Peterson. Now Peterson, of course, is somebody I'm not sure who's ever been here in town under the auspices of who knows back when. I don't know. I just found out that Charlie Parker broke the color barrier at a homecoming dance in 1937. Did you know that? He was in the band that broke the color barrier.
No, I had no idea.
Yeah,
No.
it was just in this new biography. Anyway, so Peterson certainly influenced a lot of people. Benny Green, speaking of Murray's shows, man, is there a sharper dresser in the world than Benny
No,
Green?
he's remarkable.
And he's just masterful, and he was a sort of a hand-picked protege of Peterson's.
Yes, he definitely channels.
You have a weakness
Oscar
for
Peterson.
the piano, or now one thing about the jazz series, I'm sure pianists like Peterson and Green are very nervous when they come to a town because they don't know what the piano. God knows what pianos they've been presented with, but Murray, they're always the good pianos.
Yeah, that's just essential for attracting and keeping the kind of artists that do come to Murray's through the jazz series or any other way they get to Murray's. But they get a good instruments, that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have been partial to the piano. I took 15 years of piano lessons, and
I see.
I don't play any improvisational jazz, but I do love the piano, and we have seen some amazing pianists through the jazz series.
That's what I was going to ask you. I was going to
Meldau.
ask you to pick a favorite, and then we're going to play a little of this Peterson. I'm going to ask Ron to pick something out from the library while the Peterson plays. I'm talking with Bill Parks and Ron Newman. We're at the Jazz Series headquarters here. Josh Chittum is waiting to do your. Is this what we're playing? Okay, Jane Eyre Bloom. Why? You picked it out? All right, that's
Cool.
going to be that. I thought we were going to play some Peterson.
We did.
All right, the whole side. Good stuff, though.
Yeah, very good.
All right, Jane Eyre Bloom coming up. Thanks to Bill, who's on the board, and Ron, you've done so much for Yeoman. So I want to talk to you a little bit more about your involvement in the Jazz Series after we pick something out. Right now, here's Jane Eyre Bloom, and once again, please stop by 21 North 10th Street. This is a nice atmosphere here. People coming and going.
This is at 21 North 10th Street, or visit wealwayswing.org.
Hi, I'm Josh Chittum, Assistant Director at the We Always Swing Jazz Series. Stop by our office at 21 North 10th Street next door to Katz Community Media Center and visit our 7,000 title library. It features CDs, LPs, and books. Everything from Sarah Vaughan to Von Freeman, from Sonny Rollins to Sun Ra. The library is totally free and open to the public. You can come in Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And if you see a title that you would like to bring home with you, ask about our membership program.
Collection exceeding 7,000 CDs, LPs, and books, the We Always Swing Jazz Series has a sizable lending library to offer the community. From jazz's beginnings right up to today's newest modern sounds, the library is constantly growing. Whatever style you prefer, whatever mood you're in, selections can be found in the Jazz Series lending library. Best of all, coming in to listen is free, but if you find a title that you like to borrow, simply become a Jazz Series member. The Jazz Series offers both student memberships starting at $25 per year and public memberships as inexpensive as just $50 a year. Entry-level members can check out up to 2 CDs per week, listen in your car, at home, at work, or grab a cup of coffee and enjoy the music at the Jazz Series. To find out how you can become a lending library member, just stop by the We Always Swing Jazz Series offices at 21 North 10th Street or visit wealwaysswing.org.
Hi, I'm Josh Chittum, Assistant Director of the We Always Swing Jazz Series. As a nonprofit organization, the Jazz Series relies heavily on volunteers to fill staffing gaps. These tasks include helping around the office, hanging up posters downtown, event staff, and even driving players to and from the airport. Volunteering is a great way to help out the Jazz Series and become involved in our mission. Also, if you're a student, ask about internship opportunities. We have internships in graphic design, photography, business, marketing. So yeah, it's a great way to get involved in the Jazz Series and earn credit.
Over there, we're live. We're doing a remote broadcast from the Jazz Series headquarters here at 21 North 10th Street. Joining me, Ron Newman and John Poses. John's the director of the series. He's also the recipient of the Jazz Journalist Hero Award. I still can't get over that. Is it going to be a crown or His Excellence? I will stop because it's something that's being given to you. It's not something you sought, and you're sharing it with everyone. Ron and I were just talking about, well, Jazz Series events. You talked about the shows, and there's the Murray shows, and then there's the big shows, and you try to use different venues all over town, which is, you kind of pioneered that concept. I'm sure it was out of necessity at first, but it kind of turned into one of the charms of the series. And then there's also the pub crawl, which, speaking of outreach, and Ron knows from experience, and you know from this is a complicated event to put together, but it's turned into something that's kind of essential. Right?
The pub crawl's in sleep mode. Really, Ron came up with the idea. Ron was an early supporter of the Jazz Series, the concept, and really one of the first supporters. And he suggested, and Ron, you can correct me if I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, if we come up with something like a downtown pub crawl, it will probably it will generate more funds than I could instead of just writing you a check. And I thought it was a great idea. And the Jazz Series had gone through its first cycle, 95, 96. And so this came up in the early part of 96 with the intent of creating something for the 96, 97 season, our second season. And at that time, nobody else, there was no pub crawl in Columbia. Now there's like a pub crawl about every fourth day in Columbia. But so Ron came up with the idea, and we agreed to find 4 places, and it was limited to 150 people in 2 groups of 75, and it was always intended to be downtown, pre-district. And the 2 groups would rotate between spaces, between the 4 spots. And it was like from 6 to 9, I think, was the first year. And then what happened was, and again, I think this was Ron's idea. He said, because everybody seemed to be having a great time, it sold out in a blink. And word of mouth. There was no advertising, really. 1 second. So the sophomore year of the pub crawl, the 3rd year of the Jazz Series, we decided, Ron came up with the idea, we need a place for everybody to go when it's over, when the pub crawl is over.
Right.
And right on cue here, Richard King walks in and says, we can do a concert, have a band, an appropriate band, at the Blue Note at the end of the pub crawl.
All right. Speaking of John, and since Ron's name keeps coming up, let me talk directly to Ron Newman. Speaking of Richard King, he's in the house too, owner of the Blue Note. So why don't you sit on this here too, Richard, at John's mic. Ron, now we're moving into the world of actual marketing, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, this has gone from being like tape the posters up, lay outside, and this means there's a lot of different organizations that are actually your competitors kind of joining hands. Rich.
Yes.
Let's talk about that. This concept, I know, it has been a kind of one of your kind of secrets of success, is that it would seem that people would not want to collaborate with their competitors, but on the other hand, it's when it rains, everybody gets wet, and go ahead.
Yeah, but you have to understand is that Columbia was basically downtown Columbia in its former position was not really well attended. The community down here, the business community, was somewhat suffering, and it was our intention to bring the young professional men and women that lived out in the suburbs that taught school and had businesses and stuff, to bring them downtown, to kind of like reintroduce them to the city center where the heart of Columbia actually is. And now what's happened is that obviously it's gone full throttle and it's grown beyond anyone's expectations. But that was our initial our intent, was to integrate the outside suburban community into visiting the restaurants and bars and locations, providing live music. And
there was live music there at each stop of the Jazz.
At every venue. And then
crawl.
there was beer and wine available for a specific price. And then the finale was always at the Blue Note. But I think the thing that really turned the whole event around was the fact that people had a chance to go into Lou's Palace. And it literally
Just that
changed,
place.
Yes,
Yes.
just changed the whole dynamic of the whole event.
That was
It's
that.
remarkable.
Speaking of outreach, and now Ron was mentioning that the early '90s in Columbia, that downtown was a little different. Richard, you moved the Blue Note to the 9th Street in 1990, right?
That's correct. 1990.
And was it different then? Of course.
It was completely different then, Kevin. And in fact, Ron was there the day we opened up. I believe he was helping clean the balcony.
Yeah, it was
first.
Arlo Guthrie. Everybody.
It was Arlo
pitched in for
Guthrie
that one.
and
Yeah,
the city
sweeping the
inspectors.
floor.
City inspectors. But yeah, when I moved downtown, I mean, it was just things just started. There was no design to what happened downtown. Like I happened to move downtown, and then Trattoria opens right next door, almost the same month that I did. Little things like that happened.
The pub crawl came along. That's when businesses started to get involved with sponsoring series and events, that type thing. They
Absolutely,
sort of
and-
downtown became bankable, I guess, maybe. Is that
Yes,
the way to put it?
and it became a destination finally, because it had been really ignored by, I think, the community, because a lot of the economic activity as far as retail was concerned was featured at the mall. And
Which
then
was new at the time,
at the
relatively.
time.
Mhm.
And then, of course, we started the concert series with Mike Dunn at the University of Missouri, and that kind of engaged a whole different clientele into it, into the entire University of Missouri concert series when we instituted a wine tasting at the Don Reynolds Alumni Center.
So more people are included. And Rich, let's talk about the booking end of the jazz series over the years too. Artists.
That was all John.
Yeah.
John introduced me to. I mean, we actually started doing shows at the old Blue Note, right? I think. Who was our first show?
Well, we did.
Was it Brantford?
I mean,
or
the
Wynton,
jazz,
one of
the
them?
jazz series.
Oh, it was Brantford because
No,
right,
actually, Wynton was
Wynton.
Wynton was
Wynton
before.
was the first one. Yeah.
Right.
And then I introduced Richard to a gentleman who changed his life. That
Correct.
would be Sun Ra.
Sun Ra.
Sun Ra.
So
I was
Ron,
there.
I was there too. Had a little tinfoil hat.
Space
on.
is the place.
Space.
He took me on. He took me on a ride.
Yeah, the late
right there.
Sonny Blount, one of our great artists.
I'm with John Poses, Richard King, Ron Newman. We're down at the Jazz Series headquarters. Lots of people here. You should come down. We're celebrating. What time's the award ceremony?
Rumor has it the award ceremony is around 5:15.
5:15, but plenty of refreshments, and we're going through the jazz library here, picking things out. Now, I asked Ron to pick something out, and you selected somebody whose name came up a little earlier. We could play a Living Dead thing.
Well, no, we don't want to do that.
But it's unfortunate with people our age. But Von Freeman, I
Freeman,
was just informed,
Devonsky.
no longer with us. Now, Freeman and you, John, had a special relationship, and Richard, you've hosted Freeman as well, and Ron, you knew him too.
Yeah, I had gone to a couple of his concerts or his gigs in Chicago, and he played in probably one of the most entertaining locations, which was like a semicircle bar where the band was on top of the bar, and they just served nothing but champagne.
Pops for
There you go.
champagne.
Pops for champagne. Thank you, John.
What was the name of it?
Pops for champagne.
Great.
Now, Freeman, he celebrated now this is a story too. He was supposed to celebrate his 75th birthday here, right? Wasn't it Fort Elling? Was that right?
Here's, let me back up just a second here. Von Freeman is one of the many people who had enormous impact on my life. And when I got into booking jazz before the jazz series, I felt like he was, he had made up his mind. I mean, he turned down Duke Ellington twice to join the orchestra. He turned Miles down to replace Coltrane in the famous sextet. He was raising his family and musicians. And I told him...
Chico Freeman.
Yeah, his son. I told Von I had to sit down with him, and he was one of those guys who was just magical, and had his own sound. 2 notes, it was Von Freeman over any other saxophonist.
Chicago bass.
And I said, Chicago born and bred. His father was a police officer in Chicago. And I said to Von, I'd like to get you out of Chicago. Would you do any tours? And Von he had a lot of demons, so to speak. Not the typical demons that you're talking about. Vaughn just had a hard time leaving Chicago. He just didn't want to do it. But I did convince him to come to Columbia on a number of occasions. And what we did was I told him I wanted to have an 80th birthday celebration for him at the Blue Note. And the plan was to invite Chico Freeman, who was living in Europe at the time, and also Kurt Elling, who the vocalist, who
Also Chicago-based.
yeah, but now in New York for many years. But you have to understand Vaughn's reach. He was legendary as far as jam sessions about younger musicians revering him. I mean, he would always open the stage up. He would always open the stage up. So Kurt Elling, and it was all a surprise. And we made him a cake, an 80th birthday cake. And unfortunately, Kurt Elling had laryngitis, if you can believe that.
Right,
and he was flying from Buffalo to St. Louis that morning, and he called me up and said, I could barely hear him, on the phone. And I said, that's okay. But Vaughn was, surprised to see Chico, of course. So,
nice.
And they played together, which was great. And I've got a couple of nice pictures of the two of them. But Vaughn was a very special guy, and for a lot of reasons. But and he played late into his life, and his energy was boundless. I used to have to tell him, Vaughn, only 60 minutes a set. We have 2 sets. Do not go over 60. And inevitably he was playing 100-minute sets. I mean, he was wearing down the audience, And I remember one time when he played Whitmore Recital Hall, and Vaughn is the head ski talker. Everything ended in ski. So that's why he's known as Vonsky.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he had played, it was in Whitmore Recital Hall quartet, and he was probably going on 75, 80 minutes for the first set. He played like 3, maybe 4 tunes, and he stops after the 4th tune and he says, I'm looking at my watch ski. I guess I'm done ski. We'll be back.
Vaughn Freeman, one of the many legends that have played under the auspices of the We Always Swing Jazz Series. I saw Eric Danielson from the Tribune just came in, and he's presenting the award.
He is our presenter.
Thanks to Richard King from the
Thank
Blue
you,
Note
guys.
Mojos, and you can say
Congratulations.
congratulations to John Ron
Yes.
Newman, a local legend.
Kevin, always
and,
a pleasure.
Raconteur. Thanks. Now, Ron, this was your pick. We're going to go to is Vaughn Freeman. We were just talking about him.
Very
Chico
cool,
Freeman's
very cool.
dad. David, take it away. You're listening to KOPN, special edition of Jazz Plus Blues Equals Soul on a Wednesday afternoon, celebrating the We Always Swing Jazz Series.
My name is John Pozis, and I serve as Executive and Artistic Director of the We Always Swing Jazz Series. These days, we're very excited about what's going on with the Jazz Series. When we conceived of the Jazz Series nearly 20 years ago, we had no idea it would flourish to the extent it has. We had no idea that it would turn out to be one of the more respected all-jazz community-based programs of its kind in the United States, and one of but a handful of like-minded projects in the entire country located in a market the size of Columbia and its surrounding area. From the outset, our goal with the Jazz Series was to create, establish, and find a permanent place within the Central Missouri cultural landscape that had staying power. How fitting is that? Just like jazz itself, which is America's gift to the world, that the Jazz Series has become a gift of sorts to the entire Central Missouri community. When we started the Jazz Series in 1995, we did so with a very concise and straightforward mission statement: to present, promote, preserve, and celebrate the great American art form known as jazz. Our intent was to accomplish this through a series of concerts featuring the world's finest musicians and augmenting those performances with related educational activities. Further, as jazz itself continues to unfold on an ongoing basis, we wanted the We Always Swing Jazz Series to showcase and emphasize the present-day forms and expressions of the genre. However, we also understand that jazz has an incredibly rich history, one now more than a century old. As such, while we've kept one eye on the present and the future, we have also acknowledged the great musicians who arrived on the scene decades ago. Today, 2 decades after the Jazz Series started and some 200 concerts and an equal number of ancillary events later, our mission statement continues to serve as the Jazz Series principal guidepost. What's changed, and happily so, is as Columbia and the surrounding area have grown, so has the number of people who live here that have learned how to enjoy and appreciate jazz. We're particularly pleased that this is especially true of the number of children who, thanks to the Jazz Series, have seen and heard samplings of the grand treasure known as jazz. Children, like my own daughters, who attended our kids' concerts as elementary school graders, are now in their mid-20s. They have heard jazz essentially their entire lives. What could be better? Each Jazz Series season arrives with renewed energy, anticipation, and excitement. However, as we ready for the 20th anniversary season, we do so with an eye toward our now measurable history and past. The 2014-2015
Street, world headquarters for the We Always Swing Jazz Series, celebrating, winding up Jazz Month, Jazz Appreciation Month, all of April, International Jazz Day today, and we're headed in about a half an hour toward an awards ceremony for series director John Pozis Jazz Journalist Hero Award. Joining me at the table right now, Greg Kroll and Tony Lotvin, two guys who have a long association with the series, several different ways. The reason I wanted you guys on together is you're both musicians. Tony, you're a professional musician. You teach, you play, and everything. Greg, you're a professional, but you play music.
There you go.
Yeah,
There you go.
right. And that's no slam. I guess it's just like athletics. It's no slam on pro versus amateur. Like, you just, you don't.
Different level.
Yeah. Well, you think, I don't know, Tony, that's one thing. Can you, proficiency-wise, can you maintain a career and be as proficient as a musician as?
You can be as proficient as you want. Maintaining a career is a whole other story.
There you go. It's the career that suffers, probably.
Yeah, that's why I'm glad you said I was professional, because I don't necessarily consider myself professional, but.
Well, one thing that says you are a professional is that I can name 10 bands offhand that you've been in since I've known you, and that's since 1975. Now, Greg, you've been in bands back in the day. You've introduced me to people who've played in bands with you, but you've been an MD for a long time.
A while, yeah.
Yeah, but you still play.
I still play, but I was just the flip side. To me, the professionalism, my profession gets in the way of my music, So I've lost my proficiency by not playing as much. But that's frustrating. But that's the way it goes. If you got to keep it up.
I never thought of this. You're a plastic surgeon, though, which requires some sort of manual dexterity, right?
Right.
And you're a guitar player,
right?
Right. Does that come in there?
That's interesting. I think it probably had a little bit to do with my choice of career, actually, because I play with my fingers. I don't play with picks, and I'd also been a fly tire semi-professionally, sold them, so I guess that's professional. And then I had built stringed instruments before I went to medical school. So, yeah, I guess everything I've done was kind of finger related,
But that this was all before medical school,
right.
Probably, right?
Right.
And then once medical school came along, that's it.
Back burner.
Tony, you play every kind of woodwind that they would name your instruments.
Well, performing is mostly just sax and flute.
Sax and flute.
But I played some piano. I'm used it mostly for composing, but not really out live. And then I sing, but mostly backup, because, as you know, I've performed with a lot of great singers around here, and I don't want to sound like a fool next to them, so I relegate myself to the backup vocals.
That's one thing we haven't brought up in talking about the Jazz Series much, is the quality of music that's already here, the indigenous. Greg, you're from Hannibal, which is nearby, but far enough away from Boone County to be a world away musically, I think.
Right, I agree.
And Tony,
Springfield.
You've taught a couple generations of kids.
Yeah.
Springfield is great. I mean, the closest.
Well, I grew up in Springfield when I was growing up. Was one of the finest public school music programs in the country.
I'll bet.
Still
famous for their wind instruments down
absolutely.
there. Band and wind.
Well, the Palins who are here, I mean, they helped build that down there. When I was in Springfield, we had full symphonic orchestras in our high schools. We had full Broadway musicals all the time. We were doing youth symphonies. The music program in the public schools had its own building.
Nice. Which we should really mention that, because it came up earlier. Someone from the Office of Cultural Affairs came in, and I said, "Are you a musician?" And she said, "Well, no, but I played a little saxophone." And I just put two and two together and said, "You're from Missouri." And she goes, "Yeah, how'd you know?" And I go, "You probably picked up the saxophone in 4th grade, right?" And she goes, "Yeah, how'd you know?" And I said, "Because isn't that a genius thing?" She goes, "Well, doesn't every state require kids to pick an instrument in 4th grade?" And I said, "No, they don't." Unfortunately, and that program is threatened, right? So we should put in our props for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It is so important. I mean, it's not just important musically and culturally, but it's important to the development of the intellect and the creative processes all across the board. And I always speak highly of any school that takes the effort to do things in music education, because the more the better. Even the exposure, the kids' concerts, the things that John and the board has really promoted in jazz education, I don't think you can have too much of that.
No, and we spoke of like the fertile ground that Columbia is, So if you're coming in and you're putting people like Bobby Watson into schools and middle schools, for people just maybe they don't learn anything off them, but at least African American kids can learn to emulate,
Right.
and learn something about their own. And I experienced that firsthand at Grant with the Roots and Blues, with the Blues Festival, kids learning about their own cultural heritage. Greg, I noticed too that doctors, I had a heart operation, And the thing that surprised me while I was awake in the operating room, right, is that they're blasting music, like, you know. And so then I ask around, and they go, oh, yeah, we do that when they're out all the time. We just crank it up. Is there, is medicine and music go together? Because I know a lot of doctors who play the guitar for some reason. I don't know.
I think, it's interesting. Some people, at least in the operating room, don't want music. I love music. It's relaxing to me, and I think things go more smoothly if you have great tunes playing. And I'm kind of a jazz guy in the OR, but a lot of people are rock and roll. I mean, I know some guys, it's classical guys.
Well, hallmark of jazz is improvisation. Does that come in much in surgery, improvisation?
In plastic surgery, it does. As a matter of fact, that's probably is what attracted me as much as anything, is because you have to think on your feet. Especially trauma things, you have to figure out how to get out of this terrible predicament somebody put themselves in when they showed up with this bad injury, So I think improvisation is part of at least what I do,
Talking with Tony Lotvin and Greg Kroll Greg, you're a member of the board of the We Always Swing Jazz Series. Tony, you've been going to the shows forever. I'd be interested as musicians into your insights into, I don't know, jazz in particular, and maybe we'll start with you, Tony, and then the series and maybe favorite shows, things like that. One of the things when I worked at the record store is that you kind of learned the gold standard in each genre of music, so to speak, whether you traded in that particular genre or not. And so as soon as the jazz series started to be put together, I realized, well, these are all the things that all the really good taste people, so I started to pay attention. When did you start paying attention to the jazz series? Let's put it that way. Now, you were playing, in jazz groups for 20 years before we started the jazz series.
I think it was back at the beginning of the pub crawl, because we played the pub crawls, and of course Lyle was here, and Lyle played the pub crawls, and it was kind of a communal thing for people that were coming in town and playing, and of course it was the beginning of a lot of cultural things going on, kind of bouncing off what you were talking about earlier, and that's my involvement's kind of been a little bit on the fringes, doing some volunteer work, helping with posters and things. But now I'm a little more involved with trying to raise money and promote, because 20th season's coming up next year, and there's the cultural milieu of Columbian downtown has grown, especially in the past 10 years, and it takes. You don't have to necessarily like jazz or any type of jazz to be involved with the jazz series. You just have to want to promote the culture and the arts in Columbia, because this is a big piece and a piece of the puzzle of everything. You have to have a selection of arts and music, because everybody has their own personal preferences.
Right.
But you can't just have a country downtown, or a rock and roll downtown, or a jazz downtown, or a ballet downtown. The more you have, the more attention it attracts, both internally and from afar. And so going into the 20th season, people need to think about getting more involved.
It's flexible. It's a movable feast. It's a concept that's not a brand. Everybody trusts the brand. That's essentially what you're talking
and it's
about.
not just one thing. People say, "Oh, I don't like jazz." So, well, what are you talking about? What kind of jazz? And saying I don't like jazz is like saying, "Oh, I don't like country," or I don't like hip hop, or I don't like world music. Well, there's so many different kinds. Do you mean you don't like Sinatra, or do you mean you don't like, Ornette Coleman? What are you talking about? It's totally two different kinds of music.
I just take it right to pride of place. I mean, it's American music, and not only American music, but American music that was kind of thought up, or codified at least, right around here. Me and Neil Miller talked about it, beats per minute wise, etc. It all happened very close to here. You mentioned, and we should just shout out really quickly, it's not like jazz appeared with the We Always Swing Jazz Series here in Columbia. Not only have we been a steady, us and Lincoln University, steady stops on the big band era, but you mentioned Lyle Harris. There was the Flaming Pit, and there was, you played, and when I came to town, there was 3 or 4 live jazz bands. Fish and Friends had live jazz. And there was a little bit of a dearth there, I think, probably right around when we're talking about the early 90s, right before the jazz series came, so it must have seemed especially timely. Now, Greg, what about you? When did you first become involved? What caught your ear? Now, you come from more of a blues background, right?
Well, yeah, kind of. I was turned on to jazz by my junior high band instructor, and he used to, any of the kids that he thought would be interested, he was trying to turn kids on to jazz. And I went to a very small school up in Rawls County, a little school named Mark Twain, but our music instructor, our band instructor, would have the kids that he thought might be interested, if showed any interest, he'd have us over to his house, I think it was every Monday night, and get a new album, play an album. We'd talk about the album, and he turned, I think, a ton of kids on to jazz. That's where I first got interested. And I remember the first album I bought was Howard Roberts is a Dirty Guitar Player. It was just a killer album if you like funky guitar. But
band is underrated as a high school activity. I found. I'm surprised there aren't more high school band reunions, where they actually, get the band back together, like the whole band.
Yeah.
But Tony mentioned Springfield, and a lot of people may not know this. Again, the only reason I know it is because I worked in a record store. But Springfield down to North Texas and Denton, including parts of Oklahoma, there's no better place if you play the horn to be from, really. I mean, the band camps are famous down there. University of North Texas is probably the best band school in the country. Fort Worth produced Sonny Rollins. I just named a saxophone player. So we come from very fertile area. The Jazz Series does it justice, I like to think. Greg Kroll, thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah.
We were talking about, we're at the Jazz Series headquarters, 21 North 10th Street. You were noshing on stuff back there. It's pretty good stuff, right?
Good eats back there, guys.
I'm telling you, people are really coming through. This is some high-end stuff, so stop by. We have an award coming up where the people are in place. Jim Robertson, the managing editor of the Tribune's here. Eric Danielson, they're going to present the Jazz Journalist Hero Award in just a few minutes. I asked Tony Lotvin to browse through the library here, lending library, and select something, and you picked out a James Moody disc. Explain.
I've just been into re-energizing my listening to great flutists, because that's my main instrument, and it's particularly been working on some tunes from Moody, and a lot of it's not charted. I actually contacted his wife before he died a year and a half ago from pancreatic cancer and said, are there any charts on this stuff? And she said, no, not really. So just kind of been in a Moody, so to speak, Moody kind of space the last couple of months, and just trying to soak up a lot of his stuff.
It's nice to have a library to come to and moats like that.
Great library.
James Moody, you're listening to KOPN Columbia, 89.5 FM. This is a special edition of Jazz Plus Blues Equals Soul, celebrating We Always Swing Jazz Series here in Columbia. And John Pose's Hero Jazz Award. Something wrong there, David? Oh, all right. Well, we can cover a little bit. One question I didn't hit you two with, and I'll do it right now, and I want top of your head. Best jazz show, We Always Swing, period.
First Chucho Valdez show at Launer Auditorium.
Wow. All right. Greg?
John Schofield with Bill Stewart and
I remember that show too.
At the Blue Note.
That's actually not that long ago. That's maybe 10?
Maybe not even that long.
No,
I thought it was just spellbinding.
I don't take you for the bump and run stuff because you're so funky when you're flying. Yeah.
No, and with that show, my favorite of that show was probably Alfie when he did it basically solo. You remember that?
Is Sammy gonna make it?
Oh. No.
Remember that?
No.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah. Philadelphia guy.
That up.
Yeah, not bad. And Lonerod, I guess, maybe one of my favorite off-site. Murray's certainly my favorite place to see a jazz show.
Oh, yeah.
But Lonerod was a real revelation. I didn't even know it existed before the Jazz Series. Put something on down there. James Moody.
Hi, I'm Josh Chittum, Assistant Director at the We Always Swing Jazz Series. Want to know if there's live jazz in Columbia tonight? Or are you a musician looking for a jam session? Then look no further than the local jazz calendar on the We Always Swing Jazz Series website. Just visit our homepage and click the local jazz calendar tab, and you'll find information on all sorts of great events, including MU Jazz Studies concerts, the Jazz Rep Lab, Columbia Jazz Jams, and of course, the We Always Swing Jazz Series events.
people that you're driving them from. John mentioned that in order to get people to play Columbia, sometimes he had to book like 2 or 3 shows nearby, either at institutions or other clubs. So your job was to get them where they needed to go.
Yeah.
But you were also kind of a fly on the wall, probably, to...
I was a fly on the wall.
Some great musicians.
Yeah.
Really intelligent people traveling around the Midwest.
Lots of storytelling.
Lots
oral
of storytelling.
history.
A lot of African Americans probably copping a lot of attitude from people if they don't know who they are.
True.
Yeah,
True.
And to be a part of that, that's
Yeah.
that's really cool. Now you mentioned one time, I remember especially that you're up in Iowa somewhere, I think, and one of the players, at one afternoon, for 1 minute you're getting hassled at the 7-Eleven for being black. And then the next minute, they're flying just for the night over to France, where they're going to do a gig for $5 or $6 grand, and then fly back and hook up with you guys in Des Moines.
I didn't get to fly to the other side of the pond or anything, but yeah, it was. I
These
definitely
guys
wasn't
were
on the road with a
internationally
rock and roll
well-regarded.
band. It was a different deal, but enjoyed it.
Yeah, but you were also helping set it up. Now you have a relationship with KOPN too. You spun discs up there.
Yeah, a little bit. 90, 91.
And jazz always been your specialty?
Not at all. I went to high school in St. Louis, University City, which had a great jazz
Kenny, have a
program. So I pretty much grew up on the rock and roll routine, Casey and all that.
Casey, mhm.
But I
you-
started listening to jazz pretty much just on the radio at night in the summer, because friends played in the jazz band at U City.
So that was in St. Louis, and
Yeah.
of course, U City High has some great jazz people that graduated from.
Todd Williams, who had played with Winton
Marcus
for a while.
Rollins.
He's New
Marcus
Orleans.
Miller. That's it. Marcus Miller.
But
And Michael McDonald.
Yeah, and who's the guitarist? Peter Martin, I think. But a lot of jazz at U City.
Kenny Green joins us too. Dr. Green is a former KOPN programmer, jazz enthusiast. And I'm talking with Pete McCarthy about Pete was around behind the scenes in some of the early jazz shows. And what was your favorite, Pete, you think? I'm going to hit you with that question in a minute, Kenny, so start thinking.
Oh, I don't know. Slide Hampton was pretty overwhelming. It was
as
sort of the
music, you
big band. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like witness an arranger give a clinic and hear a band at the beginning of the clinic and at the end of the clinic just what a arranger that does that after you've witnessed something like that.
Really? And,
Yeah.
and everybody, as far as the professionalism goes, say after a good gig and stuff, could you feel?
Oh, yeah.
Were they kinda
lots
high
of
off it?
laughs and
The stories, too.
you've told lots of bus stories
You
on the
can't-
bus
Yeah.
afterwards.
You can't
Yeah.
share.
Well, some, yeah.
Privately, if you can't track Pete down.
Yeah. But I don't know. One of the more entertaining was, who was Kenny Barron's drummer? He was Monk's last drummer.
Joey?
I'm forgetting his
All
name
right,
now.
we'll
But
find
don't
out
bring
from
up
John.
rock and roll with the musicians. I brought up a Lyle Lovett cover of a Clifford Brown song, and don't do that kind of stuff.
Not
Don't
with
talk about rock and
professional
roll with
jazz
the jazz
musicians who've been
cats.
screwed
Yeah,
out of
they don't wanna
royalties
hear
their
that
entire
BS.
lives.
Yeah.
I'll remember that. Pete McCarthy, driver, and
CD sales.
Valet.
Valet,
Valet
yeah.
to the superstars
Yeah.
that were part of the jazz series. And speaking of superstars, Kenny Green joins us too. See, this is the kind of people that are floating through here. We've got just a little bit of everybody. Kenny, your favorite? I just stopped you. What was your favorite jazz series show you've been to?
Well,
It's been
jazz
20 years
series.
worth that you
Well,
remember. You got to remember it.
I'm gonna have to say it was probably Marsalis, the first time.
Yeah. Now we were talking about it. Was that the old Blue Note down to the Business Loop? Mm-hmm. Now, Pete, does your involvement go that far back to the series?
No,
You
I
came
think
in
that
when
was a
we
little
moved
bit before
uptown.
me. I just got here in '89.
And I think the Marsalis was before the jazz series was the jazz series actually. Too.
Yeah. At the old Blue Note.
Favorite
yeah.
venue, Pete? Because since you were on the technical side, loading in and loading out.
Oh,
and
I
stuff.
think the Dakota probably, which was in Minneapolis, I think.
Oh, okay. It has to be in Columbia.
well. Oh man. Well,
Well,
Murray's.
we're gonna
Murray's
take
and the Blue
Murray's
Note.
and Blue Note
yeah,
out of it.
Yeah.
What other one?
The music department on campus, the little 230
Oh yeah, I saw
seater or
Danilo
whatever.
Perez there. That was a nice little show. Yeah, yeah.
And
Kenny, your
Candido.
favorite venue? You've taught at a lot of institutions
Oh,
down
the
here.
Windsor Ballroom with Turntine, or was that?
The late Stanley Turrentine.
Yep.
That was about 2 years before he died. Yeah. We've seen a lot of people right before they went out. Luckily,
Right.
Tommy Flanagan I mentioned before, I got to meet before. So just Pete-
Watson, was it
Bobby Watson.
Bobby
yeah.
Watson, who still maintains a great relationship with this town. So we picked out a little something John Poses did. Next up, we're going to have John actually get an award. You know, he's a jazz hero, you guys.
Yes,
jazz
he's a
journalism
hero.
hero. That's the reason we're here. And Eric Danielson and Jim Robertson from the Tribune are here. This is actually an official award. I've seen it. John picked out a Conrad Herwig song. too. Now, Herwig is one of these guys, Pete, like you were talking about. He would bring in Herwig, as I remember it, like an assemblage of musicians and work them through their stuff.
High school
right?
classmate of President Obama.
Was he? Really?
In
See the stuff
Hawaii.
you pick
Yeah.
up. Yeah. And nice guy?
Oh yeah, funny as hell. And of course he's a trombonist, and they're usually the most eccentric in the band.
I did not know
according to the trumpeters.
Now, Slide Hampton is a trombone player too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was Blakey part of that series at the time when he had a lot?
Sure. I'm keeping a list of questions for John. I will.
Because he had Marcus Roberts with him at the time, I think, or.
Well, Wynton and Bobby Watson were in the band together, in Blakey's band.
Yes.
And maybe
that
James
generation.
Williams, because
And Williams
James
was an
Williams
older generation,
introduced-
right? Yeah.
Yeah, why
John
not?
and I talked about that.
And the
story
Heath
just a little bit.
brothers, right?
Oh yeah, the Heath brothers.
And playing
another
the
one.
bass and playing the tambourine
Detroit?
at the same time.
I think so. Thanks so much, you guys. Kenny Green, Pete McCarthy. We're going to go to some Conrad Herwig. We all set up with that, David? No, not yet. All right. You're listening to Jazz Plus Blues Equals Soul. About to have an award ceremony down here. John Pose is getting the Jazz Journalism Hero Award, and all kinds of festivities going on here. Pete, you're sampling some of the refreshments?
Oh, yeah.
Now, these were not like the Jazz Series is involved with a lot of local institutions contributing food, wines, and beers. But these were not solicited. These are like offerings. These are from all the different people who admire and use the Jazz Series.
Yeah,
it's great.
Josh would have answers to the real production questions for this event, but the beer's good.
Mm-hmm.
We can bring it out.
Yeah, please do.
Hi, I'm Josh Chittum, Assistant Director of the We Always Swing Jazz Series. The Jazz Series has been offering educational activities since 1996. Those activities include Jazz in the Schools, in which we work with Columbia Public Schools and their partners in education to bring talented MU Jazz Studies students into elementary and middle schools to show them exactly what live jazz is. This is great because jazz is meant to be experienced live, and that way the students can see exactly how fun and wonderful America's gift to the world is. In addition, it's a benefit for the MU Jazz Studies students because it allows them an opportunity to get some of their first paying gigs out in the real world. We also offer our annual children's concert, in which we have a professional jazz band play at Hickman High School, and we bus in students from all over the district to enjoy the sounds of jazz. This year, we saw over 1,500 students enjoy the sounds of the Collegiate Shag Brass Band over 2 days. We also enjoy hosting community forums that are free and open to the public. These forums range on topics such as jazz drumming and the influence of Thelonious Monk on modern music. The panels are hosted by academic experts such as Gerald Early and Robin D.G. Kelly, as well as master musicians like Arturo Farrell and Matt Wilson. The Jazz Series also enjoys a great working relationship with the University of Missouri Jazz Studies Department. One of the most exciting aspects of this partnership is bringing in our artist in residence, in which we'll bring in a professional jazz musician to work with the MU Jazz Band for a few days, helping the students progress on their skills not only as a player, but as a possible professional career. All of this culminates in a concert in which the MU Jazz Studies students will get to share the stage with some of today's jazz greats. Those have included Randy Brecker, Russell Malone, Joe Locke, and Jeffrey Keyser.
Is Kevin rapping? You ready?
This one? Back at the Jazz Series headquarters at 21 North 10th Street here in the district, as it's come to be known. Really nice crowd here. Lots and lots of people, but lots of refreshments, and a great reason to be here. We have a ceremony about to take place. I don't know how many ceremonies like this John's been involved with. This is my first being behind the scenes on this prestigious award. So we have well represented the journalism world with Jim Robertson, the managing editor of the Tribune, and I believe Eric Danielson is about ready to do the formal presentation. Eric, take it away.
All right. Well, my name is Eric Danielson, and I'm the features editor at the Columbia Daily Tribune, and it's an honor for me today to present my friend and my colleague John Pozos with the Jazz Journalists Association's Jazz Hero Award. In an age where we, in a day and age when we, misapply superlatives and we overuse words like hero, it gives me no trouble to endorse John as one. This year, the JJA has identified 24 activists, advocates, altruists, aiders, and abettors of jazz, and John is all of those things. And to that list, I would just add that he's a tireless champion of jazz, he's its constant cheerleader, and he's a thoughtful teacher of its many glories. John is a native New Yorker, but as we are down the road from a university that celebrates true sons, I think it's safe to say that he's one of Columbia's true sons. He moved here in 1978 to begin graduate study at the Missouri School of Journalism. During his first 15 years in town, John served as a radio announcer and later the jazz director at KOPN, a teacher at several area colleges, and all while maintaining work as a freelance writer. John helped present his first Columbia concert in 1985, I believe, a set by the late pianist James Williams at then nascent venue Murray's. A year later, John formed National Pastimes Productions, giving a number of contemporary jazz greats a chance to travel the road, quite literally. And to this day, he continues that endeavor, representing artists such as Conrad Herwig, Bobby Watson, Terrell Stafford, Matt Wilson, Bruce Barth, and Steve Wilson. John's enthusiasm for live jazz spilled over into the creation of the We Always Swing Jazz Series, which recently completed its 19th season. The Jazz Series has been a fount of both live music and music education here in Columbia and extending out into mid-Missouri. To use an analogy from John's other great love, baseball, he has existed on the Columbia jazz scene like a resourceful player who can field every position, and if the game gets tight in the late innings and the bullpen is depleted, you could probably count on him to come out and pitch. But unlike most utility players, John's batting average has always been high. The quality of artists that he's brought to Columbia is unparalleled. This year, drummer Matt Wilson told me that Columbia, Missouri probably gets the best jazz per capita in the United States. And this season alone, John and the Jazz Series have presented the vibrant sounds of New Orleans, a member of the first family of Afro-Latin jazz, a tribute to 60 years of the Newport Jazz Festival, August saxophonists, impressionistic pianists, and more. I've come to know John as both the reporter covering the Jazz Series and as the editor of his bi-monthly columns, which have run in our paper for the past 15 years. For me, John's columns have been like an undergraduate education in jazz history. I look forward to the moment his column hits my inbox every other week. Without fail, I always learn something from him, and my personal love for jazz has multiplied because of his insight and depth of knowledge. He celebrates jazz's many linkages, mourns the passing of its greats, and reminds us why jazz matters. John is restless to ensure that each of us understands and awards jazz its rightful place as America's great art form. To John, jazz has something to say to everyone. It's a universal gospel, and he is pleased to be one of its evangelists. I'm always impressed by John's emphasis both without and within the confines of his column on relationships. John's a name dropper, but never in a cavalier or self-serving kind of way. It's clear that he cares deeply about the people who make jazz and make up the jazz world. These are his people. These are the people that he feels at home with. I don't know this for sure, but I imagine John's going to relish this award for a few more hours and then go right back to ensuring the next Jazz Series season is as tight and swinging as it can be. And ultimately, that's what makes John a jazz hero. He knows that no man is bigger than this music, and he's told me on numerous occasions that his great work over the next few years is to write the Jazz Series future in cement, to ensure that it lives on and keeps making noise long after he's gone. So, without further ado, it's my pleasure and it's my privilege to present the Jazz Journalists Association Jazz Hero Award to John Pozos.
I guess we're done now, right? Whoa, that was exceptional. Yeah, we'll just put this up here. There we go. Anyway, This is really, thank you all for coming out. This is great. It's a lot of fun. A few thank yous before I just make a few remarks. I'd like to thank the board of directors of the Jazz Series, and there's several of them here, past and present, for allowing me to feed my Jones, so to speak. And they try their hardest to keep me under control, but slowly but surely they're learning it's not going to happen. I want to thank also, we've had a lot of support. By the way, I should say welcome to the culmination of International Jazz Appreciation Month and Jazz April, and this is International Jazz Day, which is really a great way to end. We've had a spectacular month of events, concerts, speakers, films, and now this is great. I do want to thank some of the people or some of the organizations that allowed us to do Jazz Appreciation Month, and that's the Columbia Convention and Visitors Bureau and the Missouri Arts Council. We had a great event with Ragtag, Missouri Employers Mutual, the Office of Cultural Affairs, of course, and we are, I want to thank especially KOPN and CAT TV for agreeing to broadcast and simulcast this proceeding, as it were. I also want to thank especially Josh Chittum, who's the assistant director, who really does yeoman's work here and is really just tremendous at what he does. And for also, all the work he does, I want to thank him. As for my receiving the Jazz Hero Award, I want to say this. First of all, I'm deeply honored, of course, that the Jazz Journalists Association, which I'm a member of, nominated me as one of 24 2014 Jazz Heroes. And I want to congratulate my colleagues around the world, mostly in America, but mostly around the world. I mean, mostly in America, but a few internationally, on being named as well. And anybody who wants to check out the list of Jazz Heroes, this is an award that the Jazz Journalists Association came up with about 10 years ago. And if you just Google by year Jazz Journalists JJA Hero Awards, you'll see the list of people who have received it over the last 10 years or so. For those of you unaware of the Jazz Journalists Association, it is a loose configuration of people like myself, but mostly it's a media-related organization filled with videographers, photographers, announcers on the radio, television people, essentially anybody who covers and through the media, one medium or another, bloggers, etc., covers jazz and sort of tries to let people know where jazz is and what's happening in this great field. So anyway, it's really a fun bunch of people from around the world. The Jazz Hero Award for me is meaningful for several reasons, but most of all, it recognizes, at least in part, the Jazz Series' staying power as part of Central Missouri cultural landscape, which is, when I started the Jazz Series, that's really what the goal was or is. The award also speaks to the Jazz Series maintaining the highest artistic integrity and the organization's ability to offer the entire community an opportunity to come see, hear, and delve into and enjoy countless artists who have truly dedicated their lives to this great craft. America's gift to the world is jazz. We have exported it all over the place. And as I said earlier today, this being International Jazz Day, there have been an unbelievable amount of events going on throughout the world, every continent. I mean, you can just look it up, do International Jazz Day and check it out. There are thousands of events that started whenever 1201 hit somewhere. And it's just really great to the fact that, you know, America has given this to the world, and the world has embraced it. The trick is getting, if you're not a hero in your hometown, so to speak, the trick is getting Americans to embrace this music, which is not the easiest thing, because if you don't have radio, if you don't have jazz on TV, if you don't teach it in the schools and you expose people to this music at an early age, then you really have to work and discover it at some point and say, I want to check this out. Speaking of checking out, how about our library here? Very nice. So you have to work at it, and which is one of the reasons we came up with the idea of the lending library, that people would be able to check this music out on their own time. And we're just getting started with this project, but we hope it'll be, in the next 12 to 18 months, a giant community resource for everybody to use. I made up my mind a long time ago. Eric is pretty modest. Today, by my count, is Wednesday afternoon, and I have to be careful because the senior editor of the Tribune is here too, and by all rights, the column should have been in already for Sunday's paper. So, but Eric has been, I refer to him as, I send him emails, I say, boss, it's coming. It's coming, And then, of course, when I send it off, I say, genius on board, So he knows it's happening. But there will be a column this Sunday. I'm not sure exactly, but it will happen. I promise. Anyway, but in terms of that, I made up my mind a long time ago that I was going to be a jazz advocate. I come from a print journalism background, and the idea of objective journalism, while valid and important in a lot of ways, it's also a myth in a lot of ways for any number of reasons, which is a discussion for a different time. But I made up my mind that I was going to do what I could for this music to foster it in whatever means possible, and do it hopefully in a proper way, an intelligent way. And hopefully I've been able to do that to a certain extent. I'm going to repeat myself a little bit from this morning's. This is the alternate take, as I like to say. One of my early high points, journalism-wise, was having a unbelievably long and multiple phone sessions interviewing Sonny Rollins, who is really one of my great heroes. And I just couldn't believe I was talking to Sonny Rollins for hours, and he was answering questions. And then a number of years later, I was able to present Sonny Rollins and have him appear at Jesse Auditorium. And I remember really clearly that just saying, please welcome Sonny Rollins, or whatever, just introducing him to the crowd meant so much more than that interview. The fact that Sonny was here in Columbia, Missouri, and the fact that people had come out to see him, and I realized pretty much right then and there that that's sort of where my place was. I've been told many times over that I'm too personally involved with musicians, and quite frankly, I wouldn't have it any other way. Not that I don't pay attention to guideposts and guidelines and keep certain distances, but I'm really proud of the fact that my two daughters know Bobby Watson and his kids, and they know Terrell Stafford, who they saw when they were elementary school kids, when we brought Terrell in to go to do the children's concert. And now here are Zoe and Hannah, 25 and 28, and they go to jazz on their own, and they call me up and say, oh, I just saw so-and-so, I just saw so-and-so, and it's that kind of stuff is rewarding. So a lot of times I've been asked how can I tell if the jazz series is successful? And really, there's two elements that make it successful. One is bringing the greatest musicians in the world to Columbia, Missouri, and the second is getting people to be in front of those musicians. So if the musicians have you guys to watch them and hear them, then, and we have great musicians, then that's the real hero part of this thing. Then that's what is the success. So I just want to say again that it's a great honor to be cited as a 2014 Jazz Hero. I want to thank the JJA and in particular Susan Brink, who really sort of spurred this on and got in touch with Brian, our board president, and other people and me, and also Howard Mandel, who is the organization's JJA president, who is really the person that really does a lot to keep that little organization going. And so, you know, on behalf of the Jazz Series and Josh and the rest of our smallish staff, and of course the board of directors, and on behalf of the many, many exceptional, delightful, and hardworking jazz musicians who have enriched my life beyond anything I could have ever imagined, I accept the award. Thank you. Okay. So thank you. Really, the open house continues. Now we can have some fun. You know, if you haven't been to the Jazz Series before, please peruse it. This is the library. This is an artifact from Streetside Records we're very proud of, as is the poster display. That's beer, and beer, I want North Coast.
Well, the suspense was killing me. John decided to accept the award. In case anybody missed that, he decided to go ahead and accept it. Actually, quite a good crowd here at the KOPN live remote of John Poses of the We Always Swing Jazz Series, the presentation of the Jazz Journalism Association's Jazz Heroes Award by Eric Danielson, and that was a great job doing that. John mentioned Sonny Rollins. I'm going to kick it to a little Sonny Rollins right now. Rollins died in 2004, and come back to wrap things up. But this party goes on until 8, so plenty of time to hop in the car, head to the district, 21 North 10th Street. You're listening to KOPN Columbia, special daytime edition of Jazz Plus Blues Equals Soul.
Thank you very much. That was a song written by Cole Porter entitled Just One of Those Things.
Hi, I'm Josh Chittum, Assistant Director of the We Always Swing Jazz Series. As a nonprofit organization, the Jazz Series relies heavily on volunteers to fill staffing gaps. These tasks include helping around the office, hanging up posters downtown, event staff, and even driving players to and from the airport. Volunteering is a great way to help out the Jazz Series and become involved in our mission. Also, if you're a student, ask about internship opportunities. We have internships in graphic design, photography, business, marketing. So yeah, it's a great way to get involved in the Jazz Series and earn credit.
Starting to get to that age where you can blow them away.
Yeah.
You know that, right? Chatting with guests here at 21 North 10th Street, otherwise known as the world headquarters for the We Always Swing Jazz Series. The suspense is over. John Poses, director of the Jazz Series, has decided to go ahead and accept the Jazz Hero
That
Award.
was a cliffhanger, wasn't it?
That's Jim Robertson, managing editor of the Tribune, and Eric Danielson, the entertainment editor and also the presenter of the award. Yeah, I was on tenterhooks there, John. But very nicely done. I think you covered everything. And the reason I asked Eric and Jim on is the jazz and journalism connection, if there is one. Now, Jim, you've been around since John was a writer, and you're still a writer, I mean, John, but you made your living writing. Eric is a writer we all admire, and a younger one, you know.
You bet.
Any connection? What's going on? It's with the jazz.
Well, you know, the connection is, the connection is everywhere, Kevin.
Yeah.
John has it only been 15 years you've been writing that column?
It's actually, no, the column is probably in its 17th, 18th, as in its current incarnation.
Yeah.
But I have clips from the Tribune, like, music-related clips all the way probably back to 83 or 82.
Yeah, I imagine
right after
so.
I got out of J school.
And you know, John has educated us for all these years, 17 years, 16, whatever.
Here's what I'm getting at.
And you know, along comes Eric, who is definitely a serious student of all kinds of music, and adds so much to the Tribune and context. And John's still in there, and I think it's really extraordinary that Ovation section with the kind of coverage of music we have.
It's sort of like up in the game when somebody ups the game.
Absolutely,
everybody's game
I
goes
think
up.
so,
And
too.
we were just talking before about what were we talking?
I don't know, Kevin. That's what happens when you cross that 60 threshold.
We were talking before about the cultural climate, not
Yeah.
climate downtown, but what the jazz series. Oh, I know what it was. People listening to your show, John, and learning about jazz through listening to your show. We were all younger then, and Eric, you get it from a different way. You get his column, which you have to decipher.
Yeah.
And, well, I mean, you have to check. And
Right.
You have to who's who, the connections.
Absorb.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
And so there's that, and there's also what came up was the fact that the jazz series has added a lot to downtown culture. There's been a lot going on downtown, but just lately,
and a lot to Columbia culture. You know, we've got such a rich musical culture in town, and
that's true.
And jazz, John's jazz series has just expanded that. It's taken it places where it wouldn't go without him.
If you're going to do it in a place like Columbia, you better do it right. I mean,
absolutely.
So I talked to any blues person from St. Louis about not knowing your stuff and coming to Columbia. They'll run you right out of town.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, I mean,
you know what Miles Davis used to said about St. Louis? People in St. Louis like to get down, but they like to get all the way down. Yeah. Same as Columbia, maybe, John.
I don't know. I was going to just come back to what Jim was talking about, and I have been writing for the Tribune on and off, but mostly in the longest stretch in the current incarnation of every other Sunday.
Bi-weekly.
Yeah, bi-weekly. But I have to say, by far, Eric is he is eclectic in his tastes, and he is really knowledgeable, and and he also really tries to get better at every aspect, and he covers a lot of ground, and it doesn't hurt that he's a good writer.
Yeah.
But
he's another guy who takes what you offer and makes something of it. Bill Parks was talking about it, whether he's diapering the kids or Jim Crow or Greg Kroll when he's in the operating room.
Right.
Yeah. So
Right.
you affect a lot of people, or jazz does. Anyway.
But I just want to say that the Ovation / After Hours, but basically the arts coverage in the Tribune is, I would say, if it's not the best it's ever been, it's certainly right there, but I think it probably is the best that it's ever been.
It sounds like another jazz hero coming up here, nominee. Maybe
Yeah,
Eric
that's right.
Jameson.
I
Maybe
think
we get his
so.
name in a successor. But I just wanted to congratulate John.
Did I accept it, Kevin? I wasn't sure.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
And Jim and Eric, thanks so much for having the column. Pete Bland is also here from the Columbia Daily Tribune.
Pete.
He informs us on the entertainment scene every week. I don't think we're going to have time to do that this week, but
Do I have just a minute, Kevin?
yeah,
I
we
mean,
need to talk about this. Is one of the reasons why
Yeah.
we had Tony Lotvin on before, and we
Yeah,
talked about
good.
just how rich Columbia is musically. And John, you know this. You know how to listen to a rhythm section. And you know that we have it together here in Columbia. The ones who play, not me.
yeah, you bet.
But
Well, Missouri River Cultural Conservancy,
another
John.
worthwhile institution.
It's another institution that makes Columbia rich with
Yes,
music.
like Eric
And these
Daniels.
guys, I'm recently on the board, so I'm going to pitch. They've got a benefit Friday night coming up at the Blue Note. Doors open at 6:30 or 7, I think.
Right, and there's a silent auction going on for that.
And raffle, it's
Annual
going to be a lot of fun. 3 bands.
Right.
And
Ghost Review,
and this
the
is an
Cabinet
organization that it's for 10 years has been making videos of local music acts. It's Mike Cooper down at Cooper's Landing and Jerome Wheeler kind of brought this together back a decade ago, and Jerome is no longer with us, and that's a great example of why we need to be recording and archiving these local musicians for posterity.
That's true.
And they've got a deal that they're working on to archive these videos at the State Historical Society.
Yeah.
They're working on indexing and getting in there. It's an important resource, and I would just urge everybody to support it and support the jazz series.
Yeah, that show is coming up on Friday night at the Blue Note. You can check out their YouTube site at MoRivCC. That's enough to convince you, I'm sure. And John, we were talking about preserving legacies before. Jerome, for example.
Right.
There's not enough Jerome on YouTube because we forgot to record a lot of the legacy. You've gotten a lot of people here in time. I spoke with Turrentine before. He died a couple of years after he was here. Sonny Rollins, who we just played, finally got him here, and he died.
No,
not
Sonny's
long
with us.
No, 2004, according to Wikipedia. John.
Not Sonny Rollins, babe.
Oh, okay.
Sonny's 83 and going strong.
Sorry, Sonny.
Kevin,
But there's been other, give me some other examples. Milt Jackson.
And jazz
Milt
and journalism.
Jackson is
Right,
gone.
Tommy Flanagan.
Tommy Flanagan is
Yeah,
gone.
these
Yes.
are all-
This-
yeah.
no, but that's why.
You got him here first. though.
For the 20th, well, I mean, the schematic for the Jazz Series is to honor the past and recognize those people who have truly shaped the music, and then also, because jazz is never ending and constantly fluid, is to go through, bring in the youngest players who have already established themselves to a certain extent, but they could be 21 or 22. Last year we had the biggest gap of age. We had Candido come in, who invented the conga solo out of Cuba, and came to New York in the 30s. He was 91. He's still playing. Okay,
Wow.
and then we had, I'm gonna forget who it was, but we had one of these very talented young cats that was like 21. So it was like we had 70 years of jazz history in one year. So the Jazz Series, the goal is to present a snapshot of what is jazz, and with a modern bent. You can have octogenarians and older folks, but if they're like Von Freeman never stopped moving forward. Dave Brubeck
Art
never
Blakey.
stopped moving forward. You know, he played because of the popularity of Take Five. The poor SOB had to play it every night, because if you went to a, God forbid, you go to a Dave Brubeck show and you don't hear him play Take Five. But what he did and what he was able to do was change that song around. So everybody recognized, the lead in and the head and return to the head. But he would do all kinds of stuff in the middle of it. And that was because, God knows, he was probably bored with it. I mean, think of the thousands of times he
Talk
must
to
have
Dylan.
He
Yeah.
must have played that, So that's the beauty of it. You
There's
got to
a
keep
legacy.
moving this music. You can't stand still,
Jazz is like a big family. I noticed that. They take pride in their past, which
Yeah.
not many forms of music do.
It's a cottage industry, as we like to say.
And John's a good example of the ageless wonder of John.
He's not.
All right, we got to wrap things up. Thanks so much for playing host. But this party goes on until 8 tonight, right?
And the raffle. Speaking of raffles, we have the first prize in the raffle is 2 season tickets to next year's season, best seats,
Awesome.
roughly about $800.
Call it $1,000, man.
The second prize is a ticket to all the Jazz in the District. A concert's probably worth $400, and then the third prize is $100 worth of our Killin' Jazz Series merchandise.
Nice.
So
You can check out that stuff at wealwaysswing.org.
Right, and so the drawing, we wanted to do the raffle went from April 1 to April 30th, and here we are at April 30th. So we are going to have last year's winners draw this year's winners at right around 7:30. So if you want to get in the raffle, it's
You have
still
my
time.
phone number, John?
First rate. Just
I don't think you won.
First rate refreshments available here. I encourage you to stop on down. Take a look at the library, which has been a real centerpiece for this.
Yeah, the library's killing.
Congratulations again, John.
Hey.
A true jazz hero, John Poses.
Yay, John.
And we spoke of those who aren't with us who finally got to town. You had the I owe you forever for introducing me to David Newman. You never cared for the nickname Fathead, which was nice to know. I kind of found that out. And you brought him to town at like it was like the nick of time, it seemed like.
Well,
and what a wonderful show that was.
Yeah, that was great, and you interviewed him.
Right next door here.
Right next door, because he was portrayed incorrectly in the Jamie
Ray Charles
Foxx
biopic, which was huge at the time.
Right.
And let's correct that again while we're here.
Right, and I said the reason I wanted David to do that was I said, we want to show clips from the movie, and I'm going to show you clips. I want you to tell me if what we're seeing is real or Hollywood.
It's awesome.
And he, he said, I never played with him.
Yeah.
I never did this.
He welcomed the opportunity.
No, I did not get Ray Charles hooked on heroin.
Glad you straightened that out.
Yeah. No.
All right.
Anyway.
Thanks, John. We'll go out with a little of the late David Newman. Thanks to everyone. Stay tuned for
Thanks,
Your Health
Kevin.
Matters on KOPN. You're listening to 89.5 FM.